and welcome to Public Speaking for Lawyers. I'm Marcia Hunter.
And I'm Brian Johnson.
This is program 1 called Finding Your Style. At the end of this program, you will understand why it's essential to coordinate your body, your brain, and your voice.
You will learn why being natural is not enough. What you need as a public speaker is a reliable technique.
And to recognize also that controlling your actions will help you look, feel, and sound more confident. The central question that we want to ask and answer in this first program is, how do you speak well as you think on your feet? We want to examine your voice. How do you sound? How do you use the language? We want to also ask questions about your brain. How does your brain coordinate with your voice? When they're both operating, are they helping each other? And finally, we want to be able to examine what's going on with your body. When you're standing in front of a group, in front of clients, and giving a public presentation, how do you speak well as you think on your feet?
Now, the only way to understand a complicated skill is to break it down and to look at its component parts and then put those parts back together. So that's what we're going to do in this program. We're going to break it down.
Think about your body right now. What are your own personal strengths? When you're standing in front of a group giving a presentation, are you standing still? Do you have control over whether you're standing still, as we are here making this video for you? We're thinking very much about how our bodies work. You will also be able to do that at the end of this entire series, and we'll start to examine that here in program 1. What's happening with your body?
So once your body is on its feet, the next question is, with your brain, how do you think on your feet? How do you remember? How do you structure? How do you find a confident way to flow from topic to topic? So the body has to be under control and the brain has to be on top of that body doing its all-important task.
And then, of course, how does your voice sound? Do you like your voice? If you're a fast talker, what are the techniques you can use to slow the pace down and still feel like you're in control? Are you loud enough? What is it about your voice that you'd like to improve? We'll ask you to do some self-assessments on bodies, brains, and voices so that ultimately you can find your own style.
That's what we're here to talk about, is your style, not our style. We're not here to say, hey, do what we do as the communication experts, but rather we want you to use our techniques to figure out your personal style. And personal style is exactly that. It's personal. You have a unique body, a unique brain, a unique voice, different from either one of us, different from anyone else on this planet. And so the goal is to figure out for yourself, what is it that works for you? So we could take Marcia's original question and rephrase it this way. How do you speak well as you think on your feet? And your answer inevitably will be different from ours. There is what we might call this art of public speaking. And like, say, the art of painting, there is the art of Picasso, the modern master, so different from the art of Rembrandt, the old master. And yet both of those artists were able to speak in their very different ways in an equally powerful way. That's our goal for you, is to give you that ability to have a technique so that you can find your own personal style. And that's our goal in this program. So if it's really personal, your body, your brain, your voice, your style, why isn't this the answer? Just stand there in front of that crowd and be natural. There's some logic to that. You want to project to the listener that, hey, it's just me talking. I'm trying to be natural, my authentic self. And the only way you can project that to an audience is have some sense within that, yeah, this is really me. I'm not faking it. It is my authentic self talking to you. But here's the problem with that be natural instruction. While there is some logic to it, there is also what we have come to label the paradox of naturalness, all wrapped up in this idea of just be natural. And here's what I mean by the paradox of naturalness. Sometimes natural behavior, and let's define natural, those things that you and I do in the course of our everyday lives when we're not self-conscious and we're not thinking about it. Sometimes those natural behaviors, under the increased scrutiny of public speaking, appear to be, paradoxically, unnatural. And the opposite is also true. Sometimes you have to do what we would describe as unnatural, technical behaviors if you want to achieve the illusion of being natural. So here's what I mean by this paradox of natural. Think about how you and I behave in the course of our everyday lives. Let's say you and I are standing in the hallway at your law office and we're just conversing. Think about what natural means and ask yourself this question: am I right now behaving naturally? Am I behaving as you and I would behave standing there in the hallway just having a conversation? Of course, the answer is no. I am standing as a public speaker much more formally than that, much more still than that. I'm trying to control, maybe even eliminate all sorts of natural mannerisms that I do when I'm not thinking about it, but I don't want to do as the public speaker. Let me give you some examples. Here I stand before you, but really this is much more formal than is natural. Wouldn't natural look and feel different than this? If you and I were just shooting the breeze together, I would shift my weight and adjust, and you wouldn't see that because it's natural. If I needed to scratch my nose, well, you wouldn't see that because it's natural. If I had hair and brushed it from my forehead, you wouldn't see that. In other words, all those behaviors we engage in when we're not thinking about it are natural. But just think if, as the public speaker, I stood up and did some version of that. Good morning. I'm Brian Johnson, and I'm here to talk about how to be an effective public speaker. And your first thought might be, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to learn that from you because you look unnatural. You look uncomfortable in the role of the public speaker. So I am standing more still than is natural to appear natural. Isn't that a paradox? I am trying to eliminate all sorts of those natural behaviors, those tics and mannerisms we all have. Even though they're natural, they're not appropriate in the public speaking setting. Think about what I'm doing with my voice as I talk to you. Is this really natural speech? Well, let's think about what I'm not doing. As I'm talking to you in this much more formal way, I'm editing out all those natural thinking noises. The ums, the likes, the you knows, all those things we do not because we decide to do them, but because they are natural. So, be natural is simply not enough. It's not enough because if you get up and are simply natural, you won't look natural. And let's add one more word to this discussion: nervousness. What about when you are nervous? Don't you want to behave as if you are not nervous? So you are nervous, but you're behaving like you're not. Isn't that fundamentally unnatural? When I hear someone encourage a public speaker and say, just get up and be yourself, my question is, which self? Do you want me to act like the person that I was back in my home before I came to work this morning when I was totally relaxed and at ease? Or do you want me to behave like the guy I am now in front of this big audience where I'm feeling nervous and uncomfortable, maybe even downright panic-stricken because I don't speak very often? Do you want me to act like him? No, don't act like him. Act like you were back home. Well, fundamentally, isn't that unnatural? So be natural doesn't get us anywhere. And what we need is technique, and that's what this program is all about, to give you a rock-solid, reliable technique. So every time you stand up as a speaker, you think, I can do this because I've got technique. Anyone who performs under pressure for a living has to have technique. Professional athletes have technique. Professional musicians have technique, whether the classical violinist or the blues guitarist. They perform, and they perform well because they have technique. And you as an attorney have to have technique because that's what you then rely on when you stand up to speak. And of course, the truth of the matter is this: the world expects that you have the ability to speak. And here's how I know that. Anytime someone asks me the question, oh, what do you do for a living? And I say, I teach public speaking to attorneys. The next response after I say that is always this. First, a little chuckle. And then this question, do they need that? Because most of the world believes that you don't become an attorney unless you are a good speaker. And of course, most of the world is very confused about the legal profession, and they think all lawyers are trial lawyers. They think, therefore, that all lawyers are kind of like the actor Sam Waterston in the television show Law and Order. And they don't understand that there are all sorts of lawyers who never go to court and for whom that skill has never been one that they have refined. But you stand up to speak as a lawyer, and our expectation is, oh, well, you're a lawyer. You know how to talk, because is that not what lawyers do? So the bar for you is set particularly high as a speaker. And that's why you need technique. Now, let's define technique in a very specific way. Technique is the threshold set of skills that you have, and you never fall below that threshold, because thank goodness you have technique. So whether you are speaking after an evening of no sleep at all, and you think, boy, this is going to be hard, or you're recovering from the flu and you think, oh, this is going to be difficult, or you're in the midst of a family crisis and you're distracted by that and you think, oh, this is going to be especially hard. But thank goodness you have technique. You're always this good. Like the athlete is always this good. Like the musician is always this good, and often better, because technique allows you to transcend not just being at that threshold, but often above it. So because being natural is not enough and you need a technique, let me tell you what our technique is based on. Our technique is based on a variation of the old question of which comes first. Is it the chicken or is it the egg? And obviously, when you consider that question, you say, well, you have to have a chicken to get an egg, and an egg to get a chicken, and around we then go with that circular logic. Well, our question about public speaking is a variation on that. Which comes first as the speaker, standing there on your feet trying to think and speak well when the pressure's on? The feeling or the action? The feeling of what's going on inside, or the action that often reveals how a person is feeling. So let's examine together this feeling and action equation. Now, wouldn't you agree with me that as human beings, very often the feeling that we are having leads us to certain physical actions? Let's think about nervousness in public speaking. So often people say, wow, I had so much nervous energy. And that nervous energy often plays out in what we would call, with the body itself, the dance of discomfort. And it's this behavior that is saying to the listener, yeah, that guy's nervous because he doesn't stop moving. And maybe it's not just his feet moving, but maybe it's just the body rocking back and forth like this. And how is it that the speaker is the only person in the room that doesn't know this is going on? Well, that's the action, rocking, because of the feeling, nervousness. But consider the opposite of that. Someone who's feeling more comfortable tends to stand more still. And that projects a very different feeling because of that particular action. So that's one example of this feeling-action equation. Here's another example. Focus your eyes where we never focus our eyes, directly on my hands. And is this not how nervous people gesture? Look at my hands. Good morning, I'm Brian Johnson, I'm nervous, and you know it. And you know it because these gestures are the action that gives away the feeling. Let's technically look at that behavior. These gestures are small and fast and jerky, because that's what we do when we're feeling nervous. Those gestures change when people are feeling more comfortable. Those small gestures get bigger, and those fast gestures slow down, and those jerky gestures are smooth. In fact, consider the compliment. Boy, she is smooth as a speaker, isn't she? Why do we say that? Why don't we say the opposite? Man, he is such an excellent public speaker. He is so jerky. Because, of course, it's not true. And we all have some intrinsic knowledge of that people who are comfortable behave with their gestures and the action of their gestures as if they're gesturing more smoothly. And the nervous person is fast and jerky. A third example now of this feeling and action equation. Something that all of us wrestle with, even those of us who teach public speaking for a living. It boils down to this question. Why do we all talk too fast when we're nervous? Why has no one ever said to me in the 30-plus years that I've been working with attorneys, you got to help me. Gosh, when I get nervous, I talk so slow. It's never that. It's always the opposite. I'm naturally a fast talker, and when I get nervous, I talk even faster. So think about, if I did nothing but that, if I just talked too fast, you would know how I'm feeling. Good morning. My name is Brian Johnson, and I'm here to talk about public speaking. And as I stumble over my words and trip over my tongue, that action, the action of my articulators, the lips, the tongue, the jaw interacting with the teeth, says to you, boy, that guy's a mess. He's so nervous. How do you know that? Well, the action is the giveaway. You're talking too fast. And what happens when someone is feeling differently? Well, that fast talk finds a much more moderate pace. And if I speak to you, as I'm speaking now, in this much more moderate pace, the action of my articulators says to you, oh, that guy's not nervous because he's talking like someone who is not nervous, who is feeling more comfortable. So whether it's with the whole body doing the dance of discomfort, whether it's with the gestures being fast and jerky, whether it's the words coming out too quickly and tripping over my tongue, here's the fix. Let's get control, not of the feeling, but the action. Because this is the dilemma for human beings. We don't have a concrete ability to change how we feel. If we did, there'd be no reason to be watching this video. I wouldn't have a job. There'd be no reason to train people for public speaking because the nervous person could simply turn on the switch that says, now I'm comfortable having been nervous. But that switch doesn't exist. We can't control the feelings. Feelings are way too intangible and ephemeral. But we can control the actions. So what if we set ourselves this goal? What if we said, I'm going to stand like a person who is comfortable? I'm going to train my body to do that. And what if we said, I am going to gesture like a person who's comfortable. I'm going to teach my hands to swing, if you will, like an athlete teaches the hands to swing a tennis racket or a golf club or a baseball bat. And I'm going to teach myself to swing those gestures as a person who's comfortable, not someone who's nervous. And right from the very beginning, I'm going to speak at a pace that is much more moderate, that immediately says to the listener, oh, well, that speaker's not nervous because she's speaking at a moderate pace. She's gesturing in a way that is slower and smoother. She is standing still. And that's our goal, is to give you that solid technique. Because fortunately, isn't this the truth? People can't see what's going on inside. They can't see if you're nervous, if your physical behavior manifests the behavior of someone who is in fact comfortable. So our goal is to say, let's not worry about feelings. We can't control them. In fact, let's accept the reality that I'm nervous as a speaker. That's good, because nervousness is going to give me some energy, and energy is what makes a speaker dynamic. So let's co-opt our nervousness. Let's make it a good thing. Let's sit there waiting to be introduced, feeling that nervousness and saying, that's fine. I'm a human being. That's okay. I'm nervous. That's good. And I'm going to know what to do with that nervousness physically. Because when you get down to it, nervousness is a physical problem that needs a physical solution. You can't think your way through it. You can't get to the solution. If it worked, it's just say, get up and relax. Get up there and relax. If we could all do that, life would be so much easier as the public speaker. But we can tell ourselves to behave with our actions as if we are that relaxed person. So as this program unfolds, we're going to teach you how to get control of your body. And by getting control of your body and your body's actions, ultimately, that will give you control of your feelings. And here's where the chicken and egg comes in. In the same way that you need a chicken to get an egg and an egg to get a chicken and around we go, well, when we look at this feeling-action equation, feelings make us behave a certain way and our actions reflect that behavior. But the reverse is also true. Our actions affect how we feel. In other words, if you stand up and you say to yourself, I am going to behave with the actions of a comfortable person in how you stand and breathe and gesture and focus, you will start to feel more comfortable more quickly. Now, it doesn't make nervousness vanish. This is technique, not magic. But if you can get control of how it is that you are behaving, you will ultimately get control of how you're feeling. And then the challenge of public speaking becomes actually downright fun and exciting. And we're going to channel our physical energy into that behavior. To sum up what you've learned so far, we're going to give you 3 mantras. These are the things you say to yourself, like a ball player might say, keep your eye on the ball. So talk to yourself and say this.
If I control my body's actions, I will look and sound more confident. Go ahead, say that right now.
Now say this. Because of the paradox of naturalness, being natural is not enough. Say that.
And third, I can rely on my technique to improve my public speaking style. Say that.
And if you have a technique, you will be able, with confidence, to speak well as you think on your feet.